Hey everybody, welcome to another Homeschool Haven Parent Spotlight. Today we're spotlighting Emily, and Michelle and I have had the opportunity to talk with her through Facebook Messenger a few times over the last few weeks. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Emily's situation and give kind of, some of this will be repeat for Emily because we've already shared it with her via Messenger, and some of this will be new for her too. So Emily has 3 kids. She is a first-time pandemic homeschooling mom. And she's got a kindergartner, a 3rd grader, and a 5th grader. And her main question is just establishing balance. She feels like she has not found her groove yet, and just trying to have this thing feel a little bit not so rocky is really what we've been talking with Emily about. And she's got her 2nd child is a bit behind with certain things. She's feeling that pressure to catch this child up. She worries about this child's self-esteem in some ways too, because the youngest one is kind of catching up. And I can speak to that, Emily. Same boat. My 2nd child, I have 3 kids, 2nd child, and my youngest child are 4 years apart in school, and as the younger one was catching up, and the older one has just, struggled with some of the reading and things so I've got some ideas on that. So Michelle and I have talked, and I'm going to start with some of Michelle's tips that she's talked about, and hopefully we'll find some things here that will help you. And first of all, I didn't find my groove for 2 or 3 years. So I don't know if that helps. I really hope that doesn't give kind of make you feel, oh no, well this is going to be forever. That's not my hope or intention at all. When I first started teaching in the public school system, I had a lot of people tell me that they're like, give it your 2nd or 3rd, your 3rd or 4th-ish year, as you reach the end of your 2nd year and you start into that 3rd year, a lot of things start to fall into place. And it's just, you're in a really new place. You're all in a really steep learning curve right now. Homeschool was chosen for you if you're a pandemic homeschooler. And it's not something that happened for me for a couple of years. When even bringing my kids home and making that choice, I had almost a year of preparation before that. And I had been a public school teacher, all of that even. It took me a couple of years before I could honestly say that we were finding our groove. So I hope that brings you some comfort and just some perspective. If I could go back and talk to first-time schooling Stephanie, and this is something that Michelle and I talked a lot about just for you, it would be reframing what science and history look like, and really giving myself permission to make that look different. And those were Michelle's exact words. I wrote them down here. Reframing what science and history look like, and giving yourself permission to use different resources for that and have a different mindset for that. And I'd wholeheartedly agree with Michelle here as far as she'd said, try and give her some perspective of what it was like for us when we were public school teachers. And we kind of want to, we only got to 1 or 2 great history units a year and 1 or 2 great science history units a year. And it was language arts and math ate up a lot of our time, and these other things were happening through experiences and stuff. And that's what I wish I could go back and tell my 1st and 2nd year homeschool self is, don't try to get through all the science and history curriculum. Just don't. I was in Alaska at the time when I first started. Quarterly, they wanted some reports and work samples for my child in regards to every subject area. I really wish I had just picked something science related that I enjoyed and something history related that I enjoyed quarterly to give my child an experience with. And maybe it was learning something that I wanted to learn about. Maybe it was a field trip and that we then responded to that day and journaled about, and then we submitted that for our work sample. Maybe it was us going and gathering a bunch of books about a certain topic and making a reading week of it. Maybe it was, I'm hoping you see this outside of the box. Maybe it was signing up for outsourcing a class. Pandemic year, I know, thank you, COVID, not as possible. But letting history and science be redefined as something that's not so much that I'm holding myself to a curriculum to is something I really wish I'd done for myself. I didn't. I was trying to do history of the world. I can't remember what I'd chosen for science that first that first year. I'd have to go back and look at my records, but I was trying to hold myself to something on a weekly basis in both places, and then I try to switch to every other week. And then, but I really wish in the end, my goal had just been to have a quarterly great science experience of some sort and a quarterly great history experience of some sort, and know that if I'm giving them a rich math experience, I'm giving them a basis for science that leads into that thought process of a scientific mind, and knowing that if I'm giving them a strong language arts experience, that there is a lot of science and history that's being read there. And I really wish I'd done that for myself. So I hope this gives you some comfort. We do know some moms that still really feel strongly about that, and you know what's best for your child, so you go with that. However, I think also I don't know if you're going to planning on being long-term homeschool, or if this is going to be just a pandemic thing. Everybody's going to be going back and readjusting as they come back. So your child is going to be no different as far as feeling the need to have been caught up or whatnot with history and science. It's going to look different for everybody as they're re-entering the school system over this next year. And so I hope that offers you some comfort too. Some of the moms here on Homeschool Haven have been the ones to say that here in our Homeschool Haven Facebook group, and that I think that's very wise. A lot of great perspective there. So hopefully that will help. And so if we were you and we were in your shoes, we would reframe history and science. We would make our math and language arts our main focus and let that be our thing for the rest of the year. I wish I just started out homeschooling that way, quite frankly. And we have some great things. We have books that we love. We love Curiosity Stream. They're great educational videos that are kind of like a Netflix, but for all kind of science type of things. You know, it's kind of got that vibe to it. Lots of books. That's what our science and history looks like, and we feel like our kids are doing great in that. And we have both been in states where our kids were tested in those content areas. They've done fine. Something that I've done when I'm worried about that being their science and their history addressing what's going to be tested, I'll just look up the local state standards for the area that I'm in. If I'm in an area where my child is required to be tested as a homeschooler, every state's different, so you've got to know your state. I never clarified with you where you're at, but I'd look those up. I would see, and then that's what I'd build a few of our experiences around, and I would throw that into their reading for the year. You know, really a great book or two on fossils is what covered that for my child, you know, or a great book or two on those different topics can really go a long way. So that's what we would say. As far as my tips are concerned for that totally adequate worry about your child having the one that's feeling a little bit behind, it's kind of their what was the word? Trying to find the word right now. I'm listening to my awesome kids play out there too and wondering if they're going to come busting into the room because I forgot to lock the door this time. Usually I let them know before I start recording. So we'll see. This might get interesting. But as far as my older one who was behind in school and my younger one who was catching up faster, and the insecurity that would cause for the older one, there was some of that where they were almost on the same levels there for a while. And I love your plan that you have in place to do some of that stuff together where they can. Again, if I could go back, I wish I didn't put so much pressure on myself to catch up that child that was behind, and what I've recognized is as I set up an opportunity to love reading in particular, that things fall into place over the years. They really do, and a lot happens in that space. And as I've seen my child over the past 6 years, and, you know, just a few years ago, we were where you were at, and you're in those early reading years, and the younger one's really there, and the older one's struggling, and that caused a lot of panic for me, and a lot of worry, a lot of, if they needed to go back, what is this going to look like, you know? And just give it time. If you're concerned about this and you're looking for answers, and your child's going to be okay. Sometimes there are just late bloomers, and sometimes there are some different I found that my child had an almost reading disability. She was almost dyslexic, but she's not quite. She was a few points shy. And finding some different tools there, there's a process in finding what works for your child. And it took me a few years to find that. And I think I let panic mode take over what just takes time. So you're only a few months into this. You're doing great. It's going to be, you're going to find answers. It just does take time. And you're asking all the right questions. You're expressing all the right concerns. So I just wanted to give you that pat on the back, Emily, that you're everything that your kids need. You really are. And as far as one thing that I did do with my older one is when they were learning things together, and this is something that Michelle said, she's like, you'll probably be shocked as you see your older one probably progress a little bit faster, because some of these things you're going to hit with them on a one-on-one basis, they're going to have seen. And if you can create any sort of a situation where the older one gets to teach the younger one in a safe way, if that works for the dynamics of the relationships of your child, this isn't going to work for everybody. Sometimes this worked for my kids. So where the older one was feeling a little bit insecure about, oh, little brother can read almost as well as I can. And that's a legitimate insecure place for them to be, right? But if I could set her up with a kind of a teaching opportunity a little bit here and there, that helps. So you said you're looking at using the good and the beautiful with them. That's what you're going to be switching to. And using with them together. We've used some of those lessons. If she can be the one to say, okay, here's the spelling word. Can you do this? Or where if she kind of holds the timer while he's reading through the words or things like that, there's some different ways to let her, I think that's validating. And I found that was helpful. And I talked to my kids a lot about my child that has a reading disability, a lot about so many people in history that learn differently, that have seen the world in a different way, and how much value to that there is. And that intelligence is not just being able to read in a certain way and within a certain amount of minutes. That's something I really try to emphasize with her and introduce her to amazing minds throughout history that have really done great things and are, a well-known name in all of our households, but they thought differently. And I found that with my child who has a reading disability, her intelligence level and her ability to think out of the box and create are mind-boggling to me. And we're really working to hone in on the beauty of that intelligence and finding other people that are influenced in their life who can emphasize that as well too. I don't know, a grandparent or an aunt or a neighbor. That can be a really beautiful thing. So I hope this helps a little bit, Emily. We both really just want to tell you you're doing great. You've got it. It takes a while to find that groove. I always tease that we found ourselves in a position about 3 or 4 years into homeschooling where my children went back to public school for a season. We had some different things come up in our life, and I'm like, oh, I felt like I'd finally started to figure it out, and now we're not here. So I'm still figuring it out, because every year is a little different. They're different grades, they're different, we're all progressive beings, so we're becoming something different. So as far as speaking to your finding balance, these are the few things that we would offer you. And really just being patient with yourself and knowing that you're on a steep hill, that we're all there with you. And sometimes we have an idea of what that looks like. And man, I wish I could just go back and say, whoa, Steph, like you're doing a hard thing and you're in a space that is very unknown. And I don't know, that visual that I had for myself was there's something actually much greater coming out of the experience of the trial, if that makes sense. So anyways, you're doing great. Please feel free, if this isn't addressing what you had hoped it would address, feel free to still send us a Facebook Messenger and say, Steph, Michelle, that was great, but this is what I was hoping for, so let us know. Anybody else who's watching this to the end, Michelle and I are at homeschoolhaven.space. You can come over to our Facebook page. We're just a couple of homeschool moms who have also been public school educators who do these parent spotlights to help parents with their live questions for free. We just want to help people out is really what we're looking for. And we enjoy just getting to know different people around the country and help in any way that we can. So we hope you guys all the best. We just want to bring, I guess our little subtitle is bringing peace to the chaos. This is a chaos type time and thing to be in the homeschool world at times, and we hope we can bring just a little bit of peace to that. So you're doing great, Emily, and best of luck to you. Bye-bye.